nowhere near an expert when I made my first $1,000 on LinkedIn, so I'm gonna run you through what I did, and maybe it'll be useful to you. If we haven't met before, my name is Erica Dietrich, or Erica the Dev Online, and I teach coding concepts to people of all backgrounds here, so you should stick around and subscribe. But if you're just here for the money, here it is. So it was just over a year ago now that I went solo. I quit my corporate job in tech and decided to just go all in on launching my own business, a lot of which was deals that I was getting through LinkedIn. I was confident enough to try to launch this because I'd been posting regularly to LinkedIn about my topic of expertise, which is coding, technology, etc., building trust, building rapport, blah, blah, blah. Hey, there's my doggy. Hey, baby. So I had been posting for at least a year consistently, and I was showing my expertise. I was building trust, showing some of who I am in my post, and being pretty consistent. I did a 100-day challenge, which helped with my follower count and just kind of helped with people seeing who I was on a daily basis. However, my first offer for a sponsored post came actually when I was still working my corporate job, and also I only had... I might have had 6,000 followers at that point, but it might have been 5. We're gonna go with 6. I had 6,000 followers on LinkedIn at that point. And, in content creator world, that's not exactly huge or anything, but people were looking for, creators who had my level of engagement on their post. They had an interest in my domain expertise. I could speak to things and to a certain group of people that not necessarily everyone could. And they liked my particular style. It was unique. So this company that I started with, they were a startup. And, that's kind of what you get when you're smaller and starting out, is some smaller companies, and that's fine, smaller budgets. But that was my first offer, and that was my first light bulb moment of, maybe I could start a business using the relationships and the platform I built on LinkedIn. So I did that post, which it was for abysmally cheap, but that was for a reason. I did that to say, hey, I've done a sponsored post, right? It's kind of that foot in the door mentality that I don't think everyone believes in necessarily today, but I still do to an extent. And so that post was for 250 USD, and it was a ton of work. It was a really involved video. But I'm glad that I, got my foot in and got the experience. And after that, probably a month after that experience, I ended up officially quitting, and I announced on my feed, like, hey, I am leaving my corporate role in order to pursue my own thing. These are the things that you can hire me for. I tried to be specific. I think I could have been more specific. And, hit me up. Hit me up if you want those services. Again, I did not do this out of nowhere. I had spent a year already of very, very frequently showing people that I could do that work and building the relationships. Now, building the relationships was parasocial in terms of, I actually show some of who I am and what I'm like to work with. And my actual personality, not like, LinkedIn personality. I showed that consistently, but I also responded to all my comments. And I tried to actually engage with other people's posts who were following me. If I saw somebody liked a lot of my posts, I would make it a point to at least once a week comment on one of their posts. I would maybe have some DM conversations. I really invested here. And I think that's key if you want to start making money on LinkedIn. Is you can't just be like, I'm selling things now. Everybody bow down and give me money. That's not how it works. Investing that time up front to build the relationship, the trust, and the expertise is going to matter. So yeah, I made that announcement, and I'm trying to remember here. After I made the announcement, I had a lot of people hit me up in my DMs. A lot would be, I had like 6 or 7 offers of things people were willing to pay me for, which I think is a pretty big deal considering I just kind of said, hey, I'm out here now. But that just shows how much the investment counted. And at that point, I actually got asked to do a variety of things. I got asked to build the MVP for a software product. I got asked to lead an influencer campaign. I got asked to do some video work for a network automation company. I got asked to do sponsored posts. I got asked for product feedback. There were other things, but essentially I got given all of these opportunities. And my first $1,000, as stated in the video, went for my next sponsored post, right? You remember that first one I did for $250 and they came to me. The second one, I officially launched the business and they asked me what I was willing to charge. Now, granted, I do very high quality videos, this video type I'm talking about, so it was worth the money, but they were a startup that were pre-revenue. They were pre-revenue, and I was able to pitch them for $800 for this video that I previously got paid $250 to do, and they accepted. But I also ended up extending that offer because it was a new product, right? They wanted some people with expertise who could try out the product, give them real targeted feedback. And so I charged an extra, like whatever the remainder was, like $200-ish, to provide that feedback. So my first 1,000 came from a company that doesn't even make money yet. Love this company, by the way. These two individuals who run it, they're awesome. But still, I think a lot of times we think that people don't have the money or aren't willing to pay money to do things. But I think you have to be willing to look in the right places, and you have to have people's trust. Now, there is one more missing element here that I haven't yet touched on, and it's an important one though. That remaining element is having posts that a company actually can see themselves working with. And what I mean is that if you only post memes will get you a lot of followers, but you narrow the amount of companies who could maybe see themselves working with you. And it depends. If your memes are somehow corporate friendly or making fun of a certain vendor or product, then maybe that's different. But I think that companies need to be able to see how they fit into what you do. This is an example. This is what I did to make that money, is that before I even started making any money on LinkedIn or went out on my own, I probably started this 8 months before I got that first offer. I came up with a technical tutorial video series. And what I did was I would choose a product that I cared about, and I would walk users how to solve a problem they had in 60 seconds or less than 90, something like that. And so the first maybe 7 of those, I don't know how many, a handful, several I did of those. I did them unpaid, and they came from my own brain, my ideas. However, that was very easy for companies to see how they could sponsor one of my posts, because they could simply insert their product and I could solve a problem that their users had in 60 to 90 seconds in that same style that people already loved and had already gotten a lot of engagement. So I could have tried this idea and it kind of fell flat. People weren't interested. If that was the case, I would have, iterated upon it and tried something else that a company could have plugged themselves into, but that got more engagement. Engagement being likes, comments, reposts, whatever. But this series was beloved partially because I put so much work into it. It was so high value. And so every company that came forward, they pretty much wanted that same style of video. And it was something that nobody else was doing. So that is how I made my first 1,000 on LinkedIn. Now, to run a business on LinkedIn is another story. I am still in the throes of building my empire, and I'm happy to update you as I have more tips and tricks for, scaling and consistently getting money. But that's how I made the first 1,000. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know down in the comments. And also, you can follow me on LinkedIn if you want right here. All right, take care.